stations is like a sauna.
The two rooms are the same across the hallway.
I turned this down this morning. It was a little hot. You want me to turn it up?
No, wherever you say, sir.
This is,
You're in charge.
It's fine.
Okay, we are live this morning. Senate Transportation Committee meeting this morning. We have quite a few items to go over this morning, but the first, I think, Senator Chittenden, you have some breaking news for us. So go right ahead and take off.
I really appreciate Secretary Naylor being here today. If you recall in our conversations on the T-bill last week, we just kept stumbling over the use of posting a database in sections 50. Sorry, in which section is it, Cynthia? Page 51, line 15 of page 479. I don't have the section number. The current language that came over from the House says post to a web page dedicated to complete streets on the agency website, a database. And then in the following section, it says post the database. That terminology, that use of that framing just doesn't really resonate with my understanding of how a database is. A database includes a schema, metadata, data definition, stored procedures, and security architectures. So the notion of posting a database to a website, I just think was jarring.
yeah, we didn't think it was the right terminology.
So it didn't seem like there was any clear root of where this language came from. And so I did come up with a first draft, not knowing if it really truly was a database. I proposed just some softer language around data source, a web searchable, web accessible data source. But I also thought that it did reach out to Secretary Naylor. And if you have any thoughts, Secretary Naylor, on how you'd like to see statutes refer to databases for any type of or overseeing management or guidance you'd like to see going forward, they would be welcome at this time.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Sean Naylor, Secretary Digital Services, and thanks for the opportunity to speak on this morning. This has been something that I think as we mature as an organization and we get kind of like the ability to talk to the legislature, database is not something we should really ever see in statute, right? Because it's one component, and Senator Chittenden did a great job of describing what is in that component. It is the place where we store data, but because it's also where we control who has access to the data, how the data is structured. It lives often co-located with sensitive information. We use security to manage, right? So we may have a handful of large databases that house data stores, data sources for many different systems. And so in the past, when we've seen database, we often in statute kind of look to more like legislative intent, which was to provide data to the public in an interactive means that, allows an individual to search, filter, sort, analyze or look for the data that's meaningful to them. So, this is I think the Complete Streets currently is out there as like a static PDF type report. And this is intended, my understanding, the intent would be to make it so that those that have interest in it can look for those elements that are relevant to them. And so putting it out there at a database is like using that language is inaccurate. This better represents it. And I was trying to think about, is there an even more informed way or more accurate way? And I think, I couldn't come up with something that was better at this point. Characterizing it as a web accessible, searchable data source really kind of encapsulates what I think the legislature is after. It's more about the outcome, which is creating an interactive experience for those that are interested in this information, and less about being prescriptive on specific technologies. Because to solve this, there will be forms and queries, and I won't bore you with all of the sausage making that goes into a technology solution, but just rest assured that a database is just one facet of it. And I think this is a better way to describe that. I spent probably an hour or so earlier in the session in House General going over the same thing as it related to the legislation around the rental registry. And they were characterizing that as a database. And it's like, well, no, there's a lot more to it. And so I appreciate the Senate's interest in looking at this and evolving the language to more accurately reflect your intent. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
So is it a matter of retitle and the terminology used? Is that what you're? Okay,
Tia has come up
because the
with,
term database just jumped off the page for us as not appropriate, but
data source.
Yeah, most of the language has been altered as I look at it here. The version I have as a web accessible, searchable data source. And that really doesn't put us in a corner by which we're talking about a specific portion of technology, right? And it articulates what really you're after, which is it's web accessible for the public and searchable, and with that comes the ability to sort, filter, and things like that.
Scroll down to the next section. The next one I think was the most.
Yeah. And this, gets to that point of more describing the outcomes, right? What you're looking for, and less characterizing it as a piece of technology that a database is, especially in the section titles where we would never have a public database. That would just violate everything we've been working so strongly for on cybersecurity.
I think this addressed our concern. My question though, is this from an agency perspective to do this? Is that?
Sean's agency is my agency.
Okay.
Executive branch. We're good.
Okay.
And then, if I could, I'll just chime in with the fact that when Senator Chittenden brought this up, I started searching in statute to see, if we were using database, then we are. And I'm going to mention this to my colleagues, just so that we as drafters of language can steer away from public database. And maybe this is something that can be addressed in the technical corrections bill in a future session to try and strip out the use of database. And obviously we would want to make sure that someone from BDS looked at that language to make clear that make sure that it was a technical correction and not inadvertently changing something.
So the word can absolutely be used. I just didn't like the idea of hosting a database. That's just the
No,
whole
it just
container.
didn't
stuff.
Yeah, so but it is being used in that way in other parts of statute. There's some Secretary of State stuff. There's actually the General Assembly statutes that is described as a public database. So it could be something that I don't think it's all throughout hundreds of instances. Database appears like 100 times in statute, but I think it's something that we can look at, and obviously we want statute to match what it is best practice.
Well, I think we should do it. I mean, something that we talked about is we like it as it was the language. So sounds great. I mean, and to me, this is more accurate portrayal of what the purpose of the, whatever we call this searchable.
Web accessible and web searchable data source.
Yeah, data source. Okay.
Data source. So I'll add this to draft 2.1 of your amendment.
Okay, you got that problem all solved? Now we're back to paving roads.
Grab your shovel, we're going back to work.
That's right.
So is
Thank
that
you.
it?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer additional ones down the road. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks again, appreciate it. Okay, what's our next, we're gonna continue and that are, Todd Law, okay?
Do you want me to show you the green language?
Oh, this is the green light?
Yeah, let's do
Oh,
that.
boy, this is exciting, I can't wait.
This is a proposal from
Hopefully John Travolta here. We can take this one ball out.
So this is posted to your committee page. It will be listed as H. Forsythia Green Lamp and Bicycle Safety Proposed Amendment Draft 1.3. There are two things here. The first piece is green signal lamps.
You want to put green lights on trucks in my bike safety bill? Please.
So under current law, you've got amber lights that can go without permits, you've got your blue lights, your red lights, and your sirens, and those all need permits and they can go on certain vehicles. This isn't changing any of that. It's doing some cleanup language in the permit section to just be clear that these green signal lamps that we'll get to in the next section are not something for which the DMV would be issuing a permit for. So it's not included as one of the listed items in what you would need a permit for. And then a new section of law, codified law, would be added, and it would not withstand those earlier sections saying that you can't have signal lamps without permits. And it would say that the Agency of Transportation may install and use green signal lamps on agency equipment without a permit from the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles. These green signal lamps shall be used in conjunction with amber signal lamps as required under statute. So currently, certain things are required to use amber signal lamps. So if the agency equipment needed to have an amber signal lamp, it would need to have that in addition to the green signal lamp. So what I would say your takeaways is that this would be separate from the permitting process. It would only be in agency vehicles. It is may, they don't have to use them. It's permissive, and it would be outside of what the DMV does with respect to other permits.
Now, when I go down, when I look at that, like I said, I haven't slept for weeks thinking about it. But when I see an amber light and a green light, one says stop and one says go. So I'm trying to figure out what's the.
Yeah, what are they gonna use it? Why green? Why, what's the purpose of it?
Maybe it'll be explained to us all. I'll be quiet until I hear all the facts. So, Todd, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. For the record, my name is Todd Law. I'm the Deputy Director of District Maintenance and Fleet for the Agency of Transportation. These are all good questions and some of the things that have been addressed through research. And I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And hopefully it's sharing.
It is.
Yeah.
So the proposal that we're putting forth is to start using an alternating strobe of two differing colors. There have been multiple studies throughout the nation, and one done by the Clear Roads group that VTrans is a part of, that I'm the TAC member for, the transportation committee chair member. And one thing that's been found is because the use of amber is so readily available and so heavily used that people almost become blind to it. So the alternating and changing lights is one of the things that we're really looking for. Green is said to be extremely well visible at nighttime. So this is from Ohio DOT, and they are the first state in the nation to use that. They started back in 2012 using this kind of as a pilot and have expanded that use throughout their state. And it's actually taken in quite a few other states, as you'll see here.
Todd, could I interrupt and have you either put it in presentation mode, or could we post it to the website? My vision is going, and I can't read what you've got.
It's not in presentation mode.
We're seeing PowerPoint, so you're not. I don't know if you shared the full screen, but you have this mic to put it on the website.
I've gotten it. I haven't posted it yet.
You might have shared the PowerPoint and not the presentation screen.
I think it switched screens on me.
So if I was gonna sell this, Todd, to the consumer or the people, what would I say to them? Stop, go, or flip a coin? What's the mission here? Do I pass that vehicle with green lights?
Visibility.
Or do I, well, that's one thing, but I just don't. When I come to an intersection, I see a amber light or red light, I stop. When it gets green, I go. So does that have a meaning at all, or I'm interpreting it wrong?
So yeah, that was one of the concerns that a lot of states have had, is green means go. And that's why we go with the alternating, and it's the amber, green. It's much more visible at night. It's been used by several, and this map is older. This is a study that Clear Roads did back in 2019. Since this, Wisconsin has used green light. Saskatchewan, the province of Saskatchewan actually uses blue and amber alternating. And again, what they see is it's more conspicuity, so you can see it at further distances. So they did a study, the Clear Roads group, and what they found was amber and amber is one of the least visible lights out there. So when they started using these combinations, that's where things started getting more conspicuous, more visible, in all times of the day and night. So daytime, obviously the amber and green is definitely better than any of the other combinations, beacon combinations. Nighttime is of course one of the biggest issues.
That's for visibility. I don't dispute that visibility. I'm wondering how you convey to the traveling motorist what to do when they see a green and amber light. A fire truck, if we see a red light or a yellow light, and now there's a blue light, we know that we have to stay or get off the road, pull off the side and wait. What does it tell the motorists on this one? Do they go by them? Do they stop? I'm just trying, the visibility is one thing. Okay, I understand that. Tell me what the message is to the driver.
So a few of the things that we talked about was using our message boards to explain to our traveling public that we are changing our strobe configuration to make them more visible. And as these are becoming more prevalent across the nation, I think that's going to be more and more commonplace. So, if we were the only ones doing it, I think, we may have more of an issue, especially we draw a lot of out of state drivers, especially during the winter months. We want them to come up here. We want them to ski. But our neighbors have not said that this has been any issue for them at all. That the green and amber alternating hasn't caused any issues with additional. It's actually decreased the amount of crashes that they've experienced over the past few years.
So is a message conveyed to the traveling public that they're more for visibility than passing or slowing? Or I'm just trying to get it in my mind, because green, I don't know how people accept it so rapidly, because green means go. I'm just confused as hell here. I can't figure this out.
Maine has done it though, is that right? Am I reading?
Maine started it in 2019, and they've expanded their fleet. They started out with a smaller group, and that's in this one. So Maine is 2019. The Transit Authority started with 19 in 2019, and they only used a couple of them on their DOT fleet. And they've expanded that, and what they found is the green shows up better, so they've expanded the use across more of their fleet.
They call their snowplows snow fighters. I guess it's easier to get a driver if you get to drive a snow fighter, not a snowplow.
Yeah, I've seen that same thing in New York. And that has been on advertisements for them to try to solicit snowplow operators or snow fighters.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I would think it would take more than that.
You would hope.
So it says on the bottom, green lights on Montana snowplows means slow down.
Yeah, so they did a fairly significant outreach, and of course, we have our own, between WCAX and my Champlain Valley, between 22 and 44, our NBC affiliate, WPTZ. So we definitely would make sure that we broadcast this to everybody. And again, using our message boards, I think would be another one. During winter events. To let everybody know that the amber and green means slow down, that there's a plow truck in front of you.
Yes, go ahead.
So a solid green light is very concerning, because if you see a solid green light in the distance in the snow, I feel like you're not going to slow down. But it says flashing. Is there a frequency of flashing that you're going to recommend? Do you have any visual or demonstration of what that would look like?
So if this will come up.
I don't think you're sharing the screen you think you're sharing.
Oh, am I on a different?
We're
I tried
seeing presenter mode. So if you have multiple screens, I don't know. All we see is the presenter mode of your slide deck right now. Green strobe, effectiveness, conclusions. Oh, now we go. Sorry.
This
go
one?
Yep.
Yeah.
But now we've got it.
Uh-oh, gotta watch an ad.
Ooh, the soaps are on.
We can't hear it. I don't know if we need to hear it, but
Looks like a mattress ad.
I hope that's all it is. I don't want to be involved in this discussion.
Are you still itching?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No better?
It's, last night I slept a couple hours, but it's, I recovered.
if you want audio in Zoom, when you share your screen, there's this little checkbox that says you also want to share your system audio. So you might want to stop sharing your screen, reshare it, and
You
check.
probably don't need to have the audio to see the green lights.
Agreed.
We don't want to hear the Art Irving ad.
But he was playing with the sounds. That's
Oh,
why I
I
was
see.
offering it.
I didn't see that.
Now we've got Todd.
It's gonna-
And an amber light behind it.
I know, I was like, why didn't we mock up that picture?
Little small box.
Version.
Wow, I haven't been this excited in years.
Little checkbox in the bottom left of the share screen interface. Share system audio.
5 cents per gallon at Irving.
That's good. Oh, what?
Let's get
All
it
right,
done.
Keith, when you see blue lights while you're driving, you slow down quickly, right? Even red flashing lights give you a warning of an emergency up ahead.
But if those lights are orange or amber, drivers don't react the same way. Just ask plow truck drivers or construction workers. A new law passed in the Maine legislature is going to mix in a new color on the roads now. Green is reportedly brighter, and it helps alert drivers. And it'll be here by the winter.
News Center Maine's Clay Gordon explains what this is all about.
We just got these.
Ken Matthews is going on 14 years plowing for the Maine Turnpike Authority. His new truck, one of 17 this season, hitting the road with an eye-catching new feature.
They show up really good.
As designed, according to the MTA, the new green lights have been tested in other states and allow drivers to pick up plow trucks further away in storms and low visibility,
They see you coming from quite a ways off.
making it safer for the operators and motorists
We think it's going to be helpful to us.
on the busiest stretches of interstate in Maine.
Those are the most populated sections of highway in the state, and there's a lot of opportunities for rear-end collisions with plow trucks and things like that, so we're hoping to reduce that.
Green is the new orange. And when to use these lights will be key. Snowplow operators want to make sure drivers don't get used to the shiny and shimmery green effect.
When lights get overused, they lose their effect of getting people to kind of slow down and be cautious about what's going on in that area.
Everybody getting so used to see them so much they never thought nothing of it. But hopefully these green lights will wake them up. Whoa, there's something different. That's all.
A difference drivers should catch a glimpse of, giving us more time to slow down. In Gray, Clay Gordon, News Center, Maine.
Right now, the Department of Transportation has 2 trucks ready to go, and they're planning on modifying 40 more. Both agencies say drivers should give plows space and slow down, of course, when you see them.
So again, that was Maine DOT. I can share the Montana if you'd like me to. Sorry.
I think we got the idea of what the proposal is. There's some concerns about green, and maybe it's because it's brand new, I never, haven't even heard about it before, but yes.
I just haven't seen blue. If you're gonna change it, let's just see blue now that we allow them on the back of trucks and
That's
fire
why,
truck
that's
and all
why I
that.
went along with the fire trucks, because blue and red, at least blue means stop. Yes, but
So what's the proposal from AOT to do a pilot like other states have done? Is there an appropriation to convert all the vehicles to these green lights?
I'll let Todd speak to the funding of this. It would probably be a gradual thing, but our proposal is to give us authorization to just move forward and do this. The piloting has been done in other states successfully, and
You know, if we're going to introduce this, we want to have the public education campaign that goes along with it, not like, oh, you're gonna see this for a while, but then it might go away, and then it just becomes more confusing.
Or just here, not.
You don't want a task force to study it?
No study, I don't think it's.
But at least 10 legislators.
Yeah. They meet 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Todd?
Well, what is the appropriation, Todd?
This would be just out of our normal central garage fund. So instead of putting on 2 ambers, we would have amber and green within there. So
Just as far as the public outreach, just the regular.
yeah, we have our own, out of the maintenance appropriation, we actually have a media line item. So we would just utilize that for doing our public outreach and the educational campaign.
Did this get proposed to the House, or is this something that's coming to us first?
It's coming to you first because it didn't come to me until after the building got out of the House.
Do you think construction folks will want the same thing for them if we broaden it to this? Does that affect all the people out in work zones?
Our presentation or our the bill that's before you is just for us and our plow trucks, just the state of Vermont Agency of Transportation. We didn't want it to be confused with every other amber light that's out there, tow trucks and even municipal plow trucks. I believe it was just for the Agency of Transportation alone.
So you don't think the towns could do it then? They have to have separate legislation for the towns to do it, or?
I can wait on that, yes. This
Okay.
is specific to the Agency of Transportation.
I see. Okay.
And the towns are generally not plowing the most heavily traveled, high speed roads either, so. But maybe at some point, that could happen.
And did I see Massachusetts on your map had done it as well? Or was it?
I think it was Connecticut. Yeah, Connecticut DOT actually does. But there are others that are speaking of this. We actually have a meeting next week with the Clear Roads group, and that's one of the things that we're talking about. That study that was done was just completed, and a lot of the states are experiencing the same thing, especially on the interstates with those limited access highways with a lot of rear end collisions, and a lot of it's because people just can't see the plow trucks.
Overdriving road.
Your adoption summaries are green lights on plow trucks. Might I ask, did you look to see if other states have adopted blue lights on plow trucks? Is there a number that are doing that? Because blue seems to make more sense for the rationale offered with fire trucks.
Yeah, and I thought last year or 2 years ago when we were looking at that legislation for the first responders for EMS and fire, I thought they were on green, but because law enforcement I thought wanted to be 100% blue. So we didn't go down that road because it was not something that we feel, yes, that it's conspicuous. We could see it easily seen with blue. It would mean slow down, but as far as I understand, the law enforcement groups would not endorse that for us.
Some green, especially with some people's vision looks blue. It could be kind of bluish green, but I don't think they would, the law enforcement from the whole blue light discussion that I was involved with, was supportive of the fire vehicles, because the fire vehicles, the blue light can only be on when the fire apparatus is parked. And because there's people out on the road walking up to the truck and stuff like that. So it was the extra safety of the firefighters that are moving around on the road, wanting to make sure they were slowing down. If the plow truck says moving vehicles, I don't know if the law enforcement would want the people to be confused that it might be a law enforcement vehicle.
I just recall that blue light was better visible, like it caught the eye more, and I think plow trucks are the worsening conditions.
Right.
Are you saying green is better than blue? And
No, my guess is that green and blue are probably similar, because I think that the stuff about blue lights was also in comparison to the amber lights that fire trucks use for white.
Well, this is the chair's favorite subject, so I think we should just spend a few hours talking about green, blue, purple, and disco.
No, I have a lot of questions about it.
That's purple.
Do they have that?
No, they wanted it.
They wanted, we never did with it. What's his name was a lobbyist here.
And now with so many cremations, we
Yeah.
don't really need
Do you have a purple light on your truck anyway?
our friend had to take Gil because Nathaniel's bed was too short, and otherwise poor old Duffer would be like up to the, so tipped up on his way to.
Anything else, Todd, before we move on, we'll think about it. But thank you for the presentation. And yes, go ahead.
One last one. So I'm reading the language and I don't see anything about alternating with yellow like we saw with Maine or actually alternating. Would the agency have a strong opinion against us refining this to make sure it's not solid green lights, but instead a combination as well as a frequency of sorts?
No, we wouldn't. I would not have an issue with that, and that's our plan. We want to make sure that we do have that alternating, just because it doesn't become, solid green.
In conjunction with amber signal lamps as required. So I don't know what's in that subsection. So maybe it is in there.
Alternating with.
The alternating.
I can imagine if this was enacted, it would take a good year or so for the public to figure this all out, because it's a long time to figure out what does green mean. And I know you can do social media and you can do all that stuff, but it's very sensitive subject, because green means go, and I don't know how else you interpret that, but I guess if you do enough public information about it, maybe it works. But boy,
Well, particularly if it's alternating with the amber.
Yeah.
I think if it were just a constant, that wouldn't work.
So Senator Chin, to answer your question, 1252B says that amber signal lamps shall be used on road maintenance vehicles, service vehicles, and wreckers, and shall be used on all registered snow removal equipment when in use removing snow on public highways. And the amber lamp shall be mounted so as to be visible from all sides of the motor vehicle. So there's nothing there that would address.
Flashing or alternating.
Right. And then I just will say, since it's come up in this committee before, in your discussions about, should we be as prescriptive in statute or not, this would be going in the direction of being more prescriptive in terms of how they would be using them, beyond saying permissively, you may use green in addition to shall, current law, must use amber on these particular.
the naming of the trucks seems to get good reaction from schools. Where'd that come from? Other states were doing it or something, or is that something?
Actually, Scandinavia did it first, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes.
So I take your point, being over prescriptive. I'd say in my role as a politician, having to go out to the community and saying we allow green lights on plow trucks, it'll be easier to say, but they gotta be flashing and you gotta alternate it with yellow. You understand my point?
Merely raising it because it's been a conversation in the committee, and I was also here to ask me, be prepared to tell you
We
what
could
you
just have something, that they have, you can have language consistent with, industry standards.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that takes care of it, because heaven knows, those standards could change.
Is something you want me to change, or is it something that the committee still wants to talk about before it's included in the thing?
Yeah, I myself, but I'm not prepared at this point to do anything, but maybe the committee will take it up one more time before we, at least we got the overview this morning, and we'll further discuss it and see what happens.
So to summarize, the agency is recommending this. They would like this authority.
Yep.
They've looked at the pilot and the research results to date and implementation in other states. And that kind of summarizes your testimony.
Improves.
Yes, that's a great summary, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Todd, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good
for
day.
your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we move on to Anthea. Is that what we're doing next?
Do you want to do the walkthrough of the amendment, or do you want to talk about the bicycle safety proposal from the agency?
I'll take the bicycle proposal.
Is that something you're, okay, so I'll put it up.
I'd like to see that, please.
So same document.
This is the new one. We got this on.
That you're in that has the green signal lamps, also has a proposal on bicycle safety.
What page are we
We're
on?
on page 3 of that 3-page document, so not in your amendment.
Oh, the 3 page.
The one that Anthony signal lamps for the first 2 pages also has bicycle safety.
No, I don't
No,
have
no,
it.
I got 1 of 9, whatever that is.
It's posted, I have it up, like,
Mike, you want to put it on the screen? Sure, we can do that if you want to. We like copies of.
like, do you have that? I see it's posted. Yeah, I can say one part. Oh. Okay, so this is session law proposed by the agency to be added to the T-bill. Since I know you're gonna ask, this wasn't something that I drafted prior to the T-bill leaving the House. I also like a shorthand from the agency after that. So it would be having a bicycle safety education program. It would be requiring a report to the agency. We need to consult with stakeholders identified by the agency, so up to the agency to identify who the stakeholders are, to develop a comprehensive bicycle safety education program that enhances and expands on current efforts to increase bicycle safety throughout the state of Vermont. The agency would need to provide an oral report on bicycle safety program design, recommended modifications to current efforts to increase bicycle safety throughout the state, and any recommendations for statutory changes to that are needed to support these safety efforts to the House and Senate Committees on Transportation on or before January 31st of 2024. And I'll just mention that I know you've heard like a decent amount about bicycle safety over the last biennium and a half. There is that 1-page document that I prepared a few years ago that just talked about what the laws are in statute. So to the extent that that is summarizing what statute says, that is what would be recommended for changes in the end portion of that, but that's only one piece of what they would be designing and implementing and reporting back to you on. The lies or the intent. I know someone here.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Senator Mazza, this, we had local motion, John Catlin, and our staff come in to talk at length about bicycle issues and safety and how we're getting more involved with multimodal transportation and trying to increase utilization of bicycles. And of course, e-bikes, as we have discussed in this committee, have created a whole new demographic, I would say, of riders who maybe hadn't previously were in the category of using the roadways on a regular basis. And we heard from Local Motion that they do a lot of education and outreach in schools. And in talking to them about their current budget and the FY24 plans we have for working collaboratively with them, they had indicated they can begin to upscale their education and outreach efforts. And then this is designed for us to come to spend like some deliberative time with more than just Local Motion, but other entities, including bike shops, other bike ped interest groups, there's Old Spokes Home, et cetera. Regional planning commissions do a lot of bike ped training or planning. So we would get these entities all together and really take a look, as Anthea said, at existing statutes, existing programs, and with new emphasis in the federal funding that's available on making more investments in active transportation, such as biking and walking. What are the sort of programs that need to be expanded? What's the budget for those? So we could come back in FY25 with a budget proposal that dovetails with the report findings, and then have spent some deliberative time on any statutory changes for safety that may need to occur based on this evolving environment. The time to do that and have some language for you that was detailed enough and had been vetted was just too short within the current session. So this is what we are proposing to come back to you with next year.
Does it address like scooters? I understand the scooters out there, but a lot of other, when I hear from, not very often, but motorcyclists will say, okay, here I register a legit motorcycle, but I still have to take a course to prove that I can be safe on a motorcycle. So I know there's scooters out there that you see, like a skateboard with their motorized.
Yeah,
Would it include those two?
so what we would take a look at. We would take a look comprehensively, sort of of categories of bicycles and bicycle type vehicles below motorcycles, you know, and maybe Anthea can help us to identify how to best characterize those, because they are probably already described in statute as specifically named vehicles, so to speak. And so we could make sure that this language is encompassing of those types of vehicles, because you're right, we're into this sort of new arena of like, it used to be just a bicycle, I'm pedaling it myself. Now we get an electric bike and that starts to look like a scooter. And how do these things all tie together, and what level of training do you need? I know we talked with Senator Perchlik about having a placard that we would hang on electric bikes that gives some kind of rules of the road and a place on a website where somebody could go to better understand the laws that exist for cyclists, and make sure that they are going out there with some level of education that they may not have gotten in school.
Yeah, because I think, you know, I know motor vehicle would have to, but there should be some sort of written exam before you're able to ride a bike, electric bike or a scooter. You do it online, you wouldn't have to hear anybody take a road test, but you do that driver's license for teenagers, 15 years old. And I don't know, I'm just trying to cover the most for the safety of the bicyclists. And we read the other day where someone got killed on a bicycle because I think they didn't understand the law of the road or whatever it is. He has to know. This morning I'm coming to the intersection right down here, and a bicyclist is 440. He's coming right, just scooting the intersection, and none of us knew what to do with the side and my side. We stopped naturally and let him go, but he just came right down the street right through it. So I'm surprised it's not many more accidents than we're having.
Sounds like he wasn't obeying the laws of the road.
Well, let's see, yeah. So, but how would he know the laws of the road if he hasn't had to take some course? I mean, we do this. I got 15 employees, kids from high school. They have to take a liquor training course online. It costs me like $30 or whatever it is. But before they can sell liquor, one, I train them, and number two, they have to take a test from the liquor control to prove that they're doing everything that I want them to do. If they don't pass, that's it. They have to take it again. Yes.
I'm not against this language. I could support it, but my comment is similar to the chair's. Is this seems noticeably silent on the specificity of concerns raised in this committee regarding e-bikes. I think of youth, under 16-year-olds driving e-bikes, helmets, and if we are truly encouraging e-bikes as an alternative, more greener transportation mode, I don't see concerns of directing this effort on lights, on helmets at night, on we require helmets on motorcycles. So I'm not against this. It seems noticeably silent on the e-bike specific concerns that have been raised in this committee.
Great point, Senator. And I think that we can certainly expand the language to add the level of specificity you're looking for in terms of what we examined in the analysis.
Who would would there be a series, a committee with AOT or just AOT and DMV, or would there be a
with stakeholders?
Yeah.
So AOT would be leading this effort. We, in all likelihood, would probably engage a consultant to assist us with this.
The other states must be experiencing some level of the
Yes,
same
and so
thing.
we would survey what are other states doing in these regards? How are they assuring that people know the laws of the road? How are they doing enforcement? All of these things that relate to bike safety. And so, and then we would, likely do some public outreach too, to gain input from the public about what do they see as needs, concerns, et cetera.
I said this before, I saw bicycles went across in front of my store a few weeks ago, texting.
Yeah.
They had both hands on his phone, and the bicycle was up steering. I'm saying, whoa. Now, could a cop stop that bicyclist?
I would think so, but
I mean, I don't know whether they have the authority to do that.
I think there actually is a law that you are not allowed to ride a bicycle carrying an article that takes both hands off the handlebars.
Do you see your highway safety folks involved?
Yes, absolutely.
It seems like that's really the leadership should come from, because that's really what we're talking about.
It's interesting to find the other day, another subject, you can go have your car inspected with tinted glass on the sides, not the windshield, not the back window. You can blacken the side windows with tinted glass. You get a inspection sticker, drive out, go down the road, and the police can stop you and you're in violation. I'm saying, why would that, why, you're gonna have something that prohibits it, why can the inspection station say yes and the cops say no? And I'm gonna ask, just because I interviewed a couple of inspection stations, and I said, hey, yeah, we can pass them now with dark windows, but if the cop stops you, you're in violation. Yes, you're
But I had a constituent say that he had permission because of a visual problem, and he has to get some kind of a permit to tint, and he said, but everybody else is going to shops and getting it done.
Right.
And why should I have to? Because
it's illegal, it should be illegal at the inspection station.
so it was sort of, why should I have to go through the permit and pay? And everybody else is just getting it done in their shops that routinely. And I think I was told that the sides can be done, but the window.
Yes,
And
you can't do
so.
the windshield or back window. The sides can be blackened.
And I suppose for law enforcement purposes.
And also
There's also-
safety.
Safety.
There's also the issue of it being an advisory in the periodic inspection manual for purposes of some windows, because you can't have the tinting on the front windshield, as you were saying, Senator Mazza, or the side front windows, but you can on the back passenger windows. And then there's also the fact that the language talks about like the tinting material being in the glass, so people are getting the clings put on. So they're saying that they can require those to be taken down as part of the inspection, but not that the window themselves, if it has the tint in the glass. So it is something that I've been hearing a lot.
The inspection station now also does not require a front plate, but yet the motor vehicle says you have to have a front plate on.
Yeah, that's an advisory as well in the periodic inspection manual, and this goes back to efforts that the General Assembly made in, it would have been 2018, to say that only things that are related to the safety of the vehicle are going to lead to the vehicle failing the inspection, which is why you heard Captain Davidson talk about how like involved it was to rewrite the periodic inspection manual. Part of what they were doing was making a lot of what had been a fail criteria and advisory criteria to align with the language and statutes that says it's only safety.
And I also found out that Wanda can automatically say front plates are not required in cars. It doesn't take legislative approval.
Correct.
I never realized that before. The commissioner makes a decision.
Yeah, it's Meg.
And do you remember if the rear license plate light is also one of those things that they removed for non-safety inspection?
I don't know if it's an advisory. I know that it's come up in the past in terms of conversations around secondary enforcement for purposes of saying, like, hey, if you're gonna make seatbelts primary enforcement, adult seatbelt use primary enforcement, like, there was an amendment to the people were supposed to be a swap, and law enforcement was like very opposed. This would have been in 2019 to not requiring the rear license plate.
Right. And I don't think you can fail an inspection.
I don't think it's considered a failure criteria because it's not a safety issue so much as a law enforcement being able to see your license plate.
I had somebody complain about that.
Well, they just have to be consistent with the motor vehicle and the inspection station. That's all.
Right, well, it also goes with noise, like we were talking about, like it's
Yeah,
illegal to have these certain mufflers, but if it's a working muffler, they're gonna pass inspection.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, because they don't test them.
Right.
The other thing I found about insurance cards, you do not have to prove that you have insurance on your automobile when you get a car inspected. Now, if most
You get
cars.
stopped, you have to show.
No, I thought we found out that they said that was required.
No, if you were self-insured, your inspection station, if that person is insured because they take a car for road testing and things, then you don't have to ask her for the, if you have insurance yourself, you don't have to ask for a car.
If the car.
If you do not have
Inspection.
insurance, the inspection, if the inspection station does not carry that insurance, they have to take that, look for the insurance there. So it's two ways. I didn't realize that, but that's exactly what it is. If you're,
Oh, because you don't want the inspection station doing a road test on
right,
an uninsured vehicle.
that's right.
And so if they don't carry the
Or if it
insurance
falls off
to
the
do that.
lift or something, that's right. So if they prove that they have insurance, most all the big auto dealers do, because they're trying cars, all this other stuff. Otherwise, you have to ask that person to prove your license, but if you have your insurance, I was asking my son specs car, I asked him the other day, he said, no, he said, if I have insurance that I carry, so I do not have to ask that person for inspection card.
I thought we asked Mike Smith about that, and he said, but maybe we didn't clarify that difference.
I mean, it's not a subject today, but I just brought that up.
Well, good, but if we're working on this bill, if it really is true that you can get your car inspected without showing insurance, I think we should change it.
So anyway, we can check with Mike Smith on that.
So you're doing right now?
I texted my guy and he confirmed, he says you don't need proof of insurance to get your car inspected.
That was one of the reasons we did.
Mike did say
Because it's a
the
state law that you require, that you have liability.
right, but it's a state law that you don't have to admit this, so. But I think that is a safety issue.
They just revised this about 3 years ago. They had a big overhaul of inspections.
It isn't a safety issue, but it's a law.
So this is Nick McGlaris and George McGlaris is a good friend of Scott Davidson. And not anymore, it's not a requirement. If we don't have to, we have to advise you on the inspection report that you need to have it with you. We just need to tell you that you're supposed to have it with you.
So the periodic inspection manual says if there's no proof of insurance in the vehicle, the mechanic should advise the customer he/she may be in violation of state law and should contact his or her insurance company to obtain proof of insurance. But it does say reject the vehicle if the vehicle is not covered by one of the insurance methods described above and it.
You reject it.
So I think this is kind of confusing.
He says he doesn't have a checkboard anymore.
And this says you reject it.
To perform a road test on a public highway, I'm reading from the periodic inspection manual still. To perform a road test on a public highway, the mechanic must verify there is valid insurance on the vehicle being inspected, or the station holds an insurance
That's right,
policy.
there it is.
that covers the vehicle
That's
for
what I said.
road
That's my son said. He carries insurance, so he doesn't have to ask them for that card because he's covered himself. That's the option thing. I thought everyone had to prove it or show them. But he said, if I carry insurance, which I do, because we road test cars all the time, I don't want, or fall off the lift or whatever, if you damage or scratch it, he's got insurance to.
What's the rest say?
Station holds insurance that covers the vehicle for a road test. If the customer has insurance but no proof is present in the vehicle, the mechanic may call insurance company to verify or may verify by electronic means. Cell phone. Reject vehicle. If the vehicle is not covered by one of the insurance methods described above, so that would be that the inspection station has insurance or having insurance, or the station does not have insurance and the mechanic cannot verify the vehicle is covered by that insurance. So I think where you're getting into a potential like loophole where you don't need to show it is if the inspection station has insurance. But the inspection station would still be required to advise the customer that they might be in violation of law if they don't have valid insurance. And then I think we'll want to hear from Dr. Davidson about, because that then goes in your inspection report.
I'm just looking for consistency because, like, I did have a person call me about the tinted glass on the side. Like, my son, he said, we can pass them, but if they get stopped with the police, they're in violation. That's kind of strange because you should be able to say no.
Right, and I can see the argument that it's not so much of a safety argument, the tinted windows of the front license plate. And I guess you could say the same thing about insurance, because the lack of insurance is going to cause the crash. But uninsured people getting crashes.
Well, one who complained to me was a bicyclist who said the driver never saw him on his bike. It's
Windows.
it's
Well, it's hard for the bicyclists to see the
Yeah,
driver,
yeah,
because you kind of want to make
that's
eye
right.
contact.
It was both ways. He said, I couldn't see the driver couldn't see me now, whether he was passing the car or whatever, I don't know, circumstances. That's why I dug into it.
So for tinting, just since I have the periodic inspection manual, it's open, it says that you reject the vehicle if there is an aftermarket tint applied to the windshield. You then,
Right, yeah.
for purposes of the side windows, reject vehicle if any non-transparent matter is present on any transparent part of the vent windows or side windows located immediately to the left and right of the driver. Advise customer if window to the driver's left and right contain aftermarket tint. These windows may be in violation of state law.
Even Senator Kitchell's car is new enough not to have vent windows. Like those are
What?
vent windows. Remember those little triangle windows in the front?
They're cigarettes.
You have vent windows?
Vent windows?
The little small things for
Oh,
cigarettes.
the little.
Yeah.
Triangle, yeah.
Actually, I had a car that had them. It was way back in the,
I like them. They were great.
one time I was getting in, the window was down. I brought my chin right down on the top of that triangle because that doesn't go down. And I was,
Right.
yeah, so I did have one a long time ago, but not, no, and now I even have automatic, because it's.
You have automatic windows?
I do, and I did
Really?
it for a long time, and it's very hard to lean over and crank down the window at
Yes.
a stop sign to see if there's traffic on the right. And then you go through the end, and it's like 20 below, and you've got your window down, and so, yes.
You can solve that problem today, you know, just pick up the phone and call you.
No, I have automatic windows.
I now like the car. I don't want you to.
No, I mean, it's never been detailed since I bought it, which you can tell by looking at it. John Bloomer took a photograph of my car. He said it wasn't inspected, which was wrong. It was inspected and where it was parked.
You can open up the trunk, and there are gonna be a pair of bell-bottom jeans in there.
Polyester.
Okay, so we're.
Well, I guess the question is, do we want to do it? I mean, I'm a little concerned about uninsured drivers, because that's a pretty major problem if they cause an accident and they don't have insurance. I guess most people's insurance, but a lot of people just carry liability. So if their other driver doesn't have insurance and you have liability, you're just screwed.
Yeah, you're right.
You still have to have insurance on Vermont roadways.
Yeah.
Well, legally, I would know.
The inspection doesn't require checking for
That's
it.
right, because they're inspecting, there's inspecting the safety of the vehicle, not compliance with highway
Right.
laws. General.
Okay, so next item.
So I think, I could put you at the table if you like, just walking through the draft strike-through amendment, that's posted, and then there will be the side proposal for purposes of the central garage fund that we can talk about when we get there. And then, I just got the, edited language back from the editors on the electrifying fleet program changes that were suggested, from, Capstone yesterday. However, I know that Patrick has been running around a lot this morning for other things and maybe hasn't had a chance to actually fully look at that language. So it might make sense to talk about that after taking a break at some point.
Yeah, when is that break?
Now, when do you want to break? Now?
Well, it's like center angle's already decided.
I guess maybe I'll, yes, Senator,